So often we talk about the bad in general aviation, but what are we doing right? Let's discuss it in the hangar. Welcome to In the Hangar. I'm Christy Wong.
And I'm Dan Milliken. In the Hangar is sponsored by Colton Mortgage. They answer your calls and they answer your questions. And by FlyingEyes, not only sunglasses, but now they do ophthalmics, the regular glasses.
Helping Dan see since 2021.
Yeah. See, isn't that cool? I just am klutzy. But yes, they are great. I love my FlyingEyes. Chrissy, you were talking about the bad in aviation. We like to perseverate, oh, there's a good word, on the crashes and on the fatalities and the horrible stuff going on. But is it all bad?
Well, we're going to find out today. We've got none other than Richard McSpadden from the Air Safety Institute.
Richard, thanks for coming
Good
back
to
on
see
the
you guys
show.
again.
So great to see you.
Congratulations to you. You had a great year with getting into the airlines finally after
yes.
COVID and sticking with it. So congratulations to you.
Furloughed no more.
Yeah, good stuff.
It's our, I guess, our purient nature that we want to look at the crashes and we want to look at, you know, the flaming balls in the ground and all that kind of stuff. But how was 2021 as far as accidents?
Yeah, you're right about that, Dan, and you're also right that we had a record year in fiscal year 2021 from a safety perspective by a long shot.
A record in a good way or bad way?
Very good way, yeah. Good. Thanks for clarifying that. Very good way. Where our fatal accident rate dropped by some 25% or more over what it was the previous year. We set a record, all-time record in GA for how low we've been by a long shot. And so, you know, what's fascinating about that is all of us in the safety world were wringing our hands because we were coming out of a pandemic. And you have dormant airplanes and dormant pilots by themselves, that's a problem. You put them together, that's a real safety concern. And yet we came out of the pandemic and the accident rate, now keep in mind a rate is normalized for activity level. That's why we use a rate. The accident rate was, you know, substantially lower in 2021. We had a fantastic year in fiscal year 2021.
Why do you think that is?
I wish I could answer. I wish I knew the answer to that because we just keep going after that. To prove the accident that didn't happen is always the challenge in safety. But I can tell you, I don't think it's a coincidence that during that year, 2020, the fiscal year 2021, we saw record numbers of people consuming material like this, like you do, like safety material. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we saw that happen. I don't think it's a coincidence that people were upgrading their airplanes in avionics shops like we've never seen before. So we're flying with better equipment. It looks like pilots are getting their head in the game as far as knowledge goes. So those things had to help us. But I co-chair the General Aviation Joint Steering Committee with an FAA counterpart, and we've asked the GAJSC to formally look at that problem and study it and to see, we spend so much time, like you were mentioning, Dan, with the what went wrong, why was it so bad, analyzing, and that's good. I mean, I'm glad we do that. But we want to spend some time, hey, can we figure out what went right? How did we do that?
Right.
Yeah. Well, and it's so hard to believe because all we see are the accidents. It's like every time you turn around, there's another accident, there's an accident. But what people don't understand is the perspective.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Christy, because every accident in GA makes the news. And so people that don't fly GA think GA is dangerous because the only time they ever hear about it is when there's an accident. They don't hear about the 25 million flight hours that happen in GA every year with not a hitch. Nothing goes wrong, up and down, get in. People don't have any idea there's that much flying that goes on in general aviation. 25 million flight hours a year.
Is your opinion that it's simply the research and that people are watching more, or do you have some other kind of theory if you were to speculate?
There's so much that goes into it that it's really hard to say. You know, what we want to look at is, did we have an unusually good weather year where there were more clear days, for example, in that time period than there was? Because that's a factor. We know that that's a factor with accidents and mishaps. So it's such a hard question to answer. Maybe if I'm lucky enough to come back next year after the GHSC looks at this, we'll be able to tell you what we found out in that report that we run.
So my question is, what was the number one reason for accidents in 2021?
Yeah, as the number one reason, which has been for quite a while, is loss of control. So that still is the dominant. Now, the hard part of loss of control accidents and analyzing that is that's a big lump, right?
Right.
And for example, if you take off in your Cessna 185 with a crosswind that's too stiff for you, a strong left crosswind in particular in a 185 is a problem, then and lose control, that's loss of control. If you take off and fly into icing and you ice up and you lose control, that's loss of control. If you take off overweight, all those fit in loss of control. So to really understand that, you have to really dive down into segments.
Right, because otherwise it's like the number one cause of GA accidents is the plane hitting the ground.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, right? Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So there is that. Now I want to share with you some other good news. So we put out the Nall report, the Joseph T. Nall report. It comes out every year, and in 2021, last year we released the 2019 report. What the Nall report does is it takes all the accidents from the NTSB and breaks them down and assigns a cause to them. And we have to wait till we get all the NTSB reports in to do that. It takes about 2 years, which is why the lag. And there are some troubling things that came out of that report to me when I saw it. The first one is the weather-related accidents. We had, at the last count, I think 34 fatal weather-related mishaps. And of those, I want to say 18 or 20 were VFR and IMC. And with all this stuff we have now with ForeFlight and with moving maps and satellite weather in our cockpit and all that, how can we still be having VFR and IMC accidents? It just drives me nuts. I don't understand that. And it was up substantially. And that bothers me because with the good equipment we have out there, how can weather-related accidents be on such a sharp incline for that year? Now, hopefully it was a spike and it'll come back down, but it was an ugly, ugly part of 2019.
Wow. What about loss of thrust on takeoff?
Yeah, it doesn't happen very much.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're fortunate that doesn't happen very often, and it's usually not an engine problem. It's usually a pilot-related problem, fuel tank, low on fuel, throttle issue or something like that, right? So it's very seldom the engine fails. As we have learned, these engines are remarkably reliable. When they fail, it's usually something we did or a mechanic did that causes the failure. So, yeah, fortunately that's not a big problem, but it's there's been a lot of attention to it. We did a video on it, so there's been a lot of work on that. Do you turn back? Do you not turn back? It's one of those third rails in general aviation.
Right.
Like,
Yes, it is.
Do you wheel land or tail 3-point a tail dragger?
North up or yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yes.
Speaking of the videos, I'm a
Yeah.
huge fan of the Air Safety Institute videos. What's next on the horizon for ASI?
Yeah, well, we started doing something we call early analysis. So what we used to do is wait until the NTSB would finish, take an accident report, and then do one of our accident case studies on it. What we've done now is we see so many of these acts. Sometimes there's an accident that gets so much attention that we feel like we can't afford to wait. So we'll take that, and if we feel like we have a good perspective and based on FlightAware and ATC, liveatc.net, some other data you can pull in, if we can analyze it and get a good feel for what likely happened, we'll do it. And those are called early analysis videos, and we put those out within days of an accident that's gotten a lot of national attention. And our point of doing that was trying to help people understand what likely happened and what the NTSB will look at as they go down their investigation.
I guess that's a careful dance you have to do between speculation and, analysis.
Yeah, it is. And, I remind people that speculation about an accident, as long as you're not tying stuff to it, like blaming pilots and tying policy to it and changing rules and making ADs and all that, that's where speculation goes down a bad path. But if you're analyzing something with data that's in front of you and taking that analysis and say, it looks like these could be possible causes, we think that's where the line is, where it's helpful as opposed to drama,
Okay. If you had one thing that you could say to all of our pilot viewers out there watching right now, that just one thing that would affect the overall pilot safety, what would it be?
Yeah, you know what it'd be? Go fly. The number one best thing you can do is be as proficient as you possibly can in whatever platform you're flying. And so if you look at the airlines, they have requirements. You must fly in so many days and do so many landings and all that. I came from a military background. They have the same thing, and that helps teach us a lesson, right, is that proficiency matters. And it's more important to be proficient in whatever platform you're flying than it is to go out and spend a lot of money on, brand new equipment. Do that if you want to, and it will certainly make you safer if you get proficient in it. So that's my best advice is go fly. Spend your money on avgas.
Well, I was thinking of asking you the question of why is it that you think 2021 was so much better? But maybe based on your advice here, I know that we had record GA in 2020 and 2021. In the pandemic, people just wanted to go fly. So more people flew.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why less accidents.
Maybe so, and we think too that it looks like pilots when the pandemic first happened, we all stopped flying. And if you look at our activity, it really dropped.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Yeah, and then when it came back, it didn't come back in a U, it came back in a check mark. When it came back stronger than it was pre-pandemic. And so that was all good. GA, the pandemic has certainly caused a lot of problems in our country. From a GA standpoint, our industry is booming. I've never seen it this strong across every segment of GA. You talk to flight schools, they're having a tough time keeping instructors because the airlines are sucking them up, and they got a bunch of students at the door, and the avionics manufacturers are booming, and the maintenance shops, and we're having a fantastic run in GA because what it did, the dynamics of the pandemic, helped show the access and the convenience and the safety of general aviation. And if people had, what we learned is if people had access to general aviation in the pandemic, they're using it.
Well, that's a great note.
Yeah.
That's good news for us.
I do have to share it. So fiscal year 2020 is a great year, right? Here's the hard part about the safety world. The latter part of 2021, October, November, December, was awful.
Oh, really?
October was particularly bad, and December was particularly bad. So coming off a fantastic year, record-setting year on the heels of a pandemic, now we go into this 3-month period where we're seeing an abnormally high number of accidents. Now, these are just raw numbers, so we can't scope it for rate, so we can't normalize it. So there are indications that activity level is way up in this part of the season. And then the good news of that is, guess what January is looking like? Really good month. Really good month.
You see, this sounds exactly like my Dallas Cowboys in 2021. They had a great year, kind of fell there toward the end. So I hope this doesn't bode for what the playoffs did for general aviation. Yeah. That's all I have to say.
All right, good. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Richard. As always, it's great to have you on the show. I appreciate you coming all the way out.
Yeah, it's so good to see you guys.
Always a pleasure, yes. All right, well, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for supporting our channel. Please like, subscribe, and share so that we can push more of these aviation content videos to the masses. Hopefully we can get this information to more people and keep people flying. But until next time, we'll see you
in the hangar.